I want my country back. I want my country back. My granddad fought a war in Europe against fascism. My granddad fought for freedom, and my granddad fought for human rights against the right wing. That's the whole point. That's where the spectrum is. Socialism, elitism, you know, right wing, left wing. That's the divide. And what they've managed to do in this Brexit is to take some of those right wing ideas and to feed them to these people at this end. And that's not what's supposed to happen. We're not supposed to, as the working classes, fight each other and break apart. We're supposed to, as the working classes, join together to wrestle back control from the people who are holding us down. I want my country back. I want my country back from the bankers, from the Boris Johnsons, from the Nigel Farages. I want my country back from the intolerant. I want my country back from the haters, from the bigots, from the closet racists and the people that think they don't like their near neighbours because they're from another foreign country. I want my country back from the people that didn't like it when black people came here. I want my country back from people that didn't like it when Asian people came here. And I want my country back from the people who don't like it that Europeans are coming here. I want my country back from anyone who doesn't want to share the country with anyone else. Because if you don't want to share it, you can't have it either. That's how it should be. It shouldn't be that I should be so tolerant that I let people walk all over me. And this is the whole point. That's the kind of idea they've been fed, isn't it? You shouldn't let these immigrants walk all over you. No. I want my country back from the people who are really treading on me. I want my country back from the people who are really benefiting. Do you see any of these immigrants in £1 million houses? Do you see any of these poor refugees with riding stables? Do you see any of these poor people getting huge bonuses from their banks and just, you know, how obvious does it need to be? Hi, you're with Scott. This is Battery Exhausted, my vlog. It's midnight, it's always midnight. This is your right ear, this is your left ear. I want my country back. Quickly, I'd like to say that I didn't want to make loads of videos about the EU. I made one, said my piece about what I thought, and then I wanted to just let it happen. I don't want to make videos where I'm angry and ranting, reactionary videos, but this needs to be said. It really needs to be said. And I've let it settle for a day or two now. This is the day after the referendum. So I can say this from a reasonably calm place. Let's begin. I want my country back. I want my country back. My granddad fought a war in Europe against fascism. My granddad fought for freedom, and my granddad fought for human rights against the right wing. We won. We, Europeans, won the war against fascism, and we moved forward together. Winston Churchill suggested that we have a European Union. I want my country back. I want my country back from the bigots. I want my country back from the idiots. I want my country back from the far right wing policies and politicians. I want my country back from the Tories. I want my country back from Boris Johnson. I want my country back from Nigel Farage. I want those idiots to move out. I want the people that go to Marseille and throw chairs to fuck off out of football. I want the people that voted to leave the EU, to leave this country. I want my country back. I know that I can sound patronising. I know that this might not be the best way to put the messages across, but you know what? It's just me saying it, and if you can't deal with it, then maybe the problem's with you. So listen in. Let's go back a little bit, okay? Because maybe people don't understand the difference between Tory and Labour and right wing and left wing. And this is important because my videos go out to the world, and I know that there are American people who watch these videos. So we're going to come on at the end of this video to talk about globalisation and the way the rest of the world, particularly America, has viewed our Brexit from Europe. Okay? But first, I want to talk about the basic principles of our European style dictatorship? Democracy. Okay? the idea you have power, the idea you've just taken back control, the idea we should come together to move forward. Traditionally, in British politics, there are two sides. There's the right wing and the left wing. The right wing are the Conservatives. They're the ones that wear blue, David Cameron, Boris Johnson, in the past, Margaret Thatcher. The people that want the rich to get rich and the poor to get poorer. The people in the right wing, the Conservatives, the rich, the social elites, they believe that we shouldn't have benefit systems, we shouldn't have an NHS, we shouldn't have free schooling, that it should be those who can afford to pay for things get things and those who can't don't. That's a principle of right-wing, conservative, capitalist ideas. That's their ideas, that governments should help companies over individuals, and that the way society will develop and progress is that the more successful companies are, the more the money will filter and trickle down to the poor people. Okay? That is right-wing politics. They're very intolerant. Right-wing people don't like homosexuality. They don't like foreign people. They don't like poor people. We're talking about the horse-riding oil barons who fuck us over day in, day out. Okay? I'm a normal person. I'm working class. I don't earn a lot of money. Okay? I have to work hard for my life. That's me. That's a normal person in this society. Nothing handed to me on a plate. Living fairly nice luxury middle class surroundings, because my parents, working class people, worked hard to earn some money so that I could grow up in what I consider to be a capitalist luxury. Okay? But it's not all my stuff, and I'm not some king of the world. I don't have a lot of money comparatively. On the other hand, you've got Labour, the red team, okay? People traditionally who want the big amounts of money in the world to be put together and shared with the poorer people. They want to have an NHS that's free at the point of service. They want to offer grants to students, not fees and loans. They want everyone to have access to free education, because social mobility then is enabled through that education so that people can better themselves in society. So there are no boundaries and borders to that betterment, so that women, gay people, transgender people are all equal as people. They're the almost, if you're an American, you might think of this as communist ideas, but it's not. It's not quite communism. It's called socialism, okay? So the socialists generally represent the working classes, and this is where the power struggle goes on between the rich elites who can gather votes from people who are already well off, and the socialists who gather votes from people who are struggling and want to represent their interests. And we come together in Britain with this butting of heads of left-wing and right-wing politics. It's quite simple. Poor versus rich. Sharing versus selfish. Okay? People of my generation don't really remember this bit of history because it didn't happen in my lifetime, but it did happen. Labour had control in the UK in the 70s, and to be fair, without getting into the big deep issues, they kind of fucked up in some ways. We had a working week that was reduced to 3 days. People didn't empty the bins. There were problems. And so Labour lost the next election to a Conservative government. So through the 80s, 90s, not quite the 90s because of New Labour, which we'll come on to in a second, but stay with me. Through the 80s, we had Margaret Thatcher and the Tories, and they broke apart some of the socialist networks that had been put in place by Labour. They broke apart the unions. They turned our economy from a manufacturing economy where people made things and had power because they could say, I'm not going to go to work anymore, I'm going to go on strike. No coal unless you listen to our needs. And then they broke apart these unions so that the people didn't have this power and control. They couldn't argue with the state. If they went on strike, it didn't matter. We'll just get someone else in to do your job because it's not that much of an important job anyway. Margaret Thatcher and her Conservative government broke apart these unions and moved our economy into a service-based economy. So a lot of the jobs now went to places like London. They went into the financial sector, and then the trickle-down effect meant that lots of people can get low-end jobs, the working classes, serving these rich people, being the cook, being the hairdresser, being the cleaner, whatever, okay? So then we moved into the 90s, and in order for the left wing to gain some power off the right wing, what they did was they moved to become more right wing. Tony Blair left some of that hardline Labour left behind. You know, he said, we're not going to go for this unions and strikes, and, you know, he moved more into the middle ground, and he was able to win some support from people who would normally vote Conservative but weren't strongly right wing. You know, they weren't bigots, and they weren't rich, and they weren't selfish. So he won some support, and he went forward after the Tory years with a Labour government. But it wasn't really Labour, it wasn't really left wing. So the British people have then been left with a bit of a vacuum. Well, who do I turn to who's really going to represent my views if I'm really working class? Because the government that are supposed to, the party that are supposed to, don't. We've got a problem. We've got two kinds of blue. We've got Tories and New Labour. We don't really have people representing the poor people in the country. So what the Conservatives did, though, is they saw this move to the middle from Labour as powerful. And they said, you know what, we'll do the same. We'll take some of their voters by being less right-wing. We'll come across into the middle a bit more. Stay with me, please, because I know this seems like it's going to be a long rant, but actually I'm making some very valid, some very sensible, some very logical, very serious points, okay? After Labour had done this and shifted the power into the middle, the Tories replicated their success. So people that we've had in power since, like David Cameron, have not been that right wing. You know, they've not been anti-immigration, they've not been anti-poor, they've not been so obviously Thatcherite, because it was seen as a bad thing by a lot of the electorate. So they've won power by leaving some of those extreme views behind, okay? But then what happened? Nigel Farage comes along. Somebody realises that there are disaffected voters out there who, frankly, are quite racist. They don't really understand the issues. In their small world, in poverty, on the basic working man's street, they're seeing foreign people move into the cheapest houses in our society. They're seeing foreign people come and take those minimum wage jobs because that's their small part of the world that they're living in and seeing. Okay, they're not seeing the big mechanisms that are going on to make this happen. So they've got their quite twisted views. You're talking about the BNP, British Nationalist Party. You're talking about Britain First. You're talking about people who essentially are very right wing. They're very fascist. They're very bigoted. They're not tolerant. They're not. They don't like sharing. They think it should be for me and for us and mine and me and me. So these aren't very nice people, yeah? And they're not modern either. Labour moved into the middle ground, but so did the Conservatives. We've left that behind. It's the same sort of stuff that saw people like Adolf Hitler rise to power. And I know it's an easy, you know, everyone talks about Hitler, and if you say Hitler, you've lost the argument. But the truth is, it's the most obvious example. Because that's exactly how he rose to power, by victimising other poor people in society and blaming the problems in society on other poor people who couldn't really defend themselves. Okay? The truth is, the problems in our society, in my country, that I want back off these politicians, the problems in our society are caused by these politicians. It's not poor immigrants who bailed out the banks. It's not poor immigrants who fucked up the economy. It's not poor immigrants who caused the housing bubble. It's not poor immigrants, you know. These poor immigrants are not doing these things to us. Poor immigrants didn't cut the NHS funding. Poor immigrants have not cut the mental health services budgets, have they? Poor immigrants are not skimming money off the top from all these institutions. Poor immigrants aren't spending taxpayers' money on their expense accounts, on their stables, on their fast cars and on their second homes, are they? And the truth is that when you look into the facts, and all these people making their videos about Remain and Leave, you know, there's a lot of facts being bandied around, but the truth is that people working in our country from abroad has provided more taxpayers' money, more money in the pot than they've taken away. That's the truth, okay? And the truth is that if you feel that there's not enough in society for you, then there's some very rich people at the top who have got loads and are not sharing any of it, and they're being very selfish. That's the truth. So you should be angry at the people at the top, the bankers, the politicians, the conservatives, because they're the ones that have caused this problem, the corporate elites. You shouldn't be angry at poor Joe next door or poor Jose next door, because he's in the same boat as you. So in as simple terms as possible, I believe that the rich, right-wing, fascist-based elites, that those people have gained their power by harnessing the spurious ideas of the right-wing fascists and feeding them into the uneducated minds of the working classes. I think it's a despicable shame that the working class voter has actually enabled a right-wing Tory mandate. I think it's a crying shame that the Labour supporters, in trying to stick one to the establishment or to David Cameron, have actually handed power to the people that are going to fuck them over. And they're happy about it because they think they're fucking immigrants out of their country. We're not going to get onto immigration in this video as a particular topic. I've covered it briefly earlier just to say that they're not the people in the society that are making it worse. They're not the people in the society that are sucking on the resources. The cuts are coming from the top. And I'm not going to go on too much about the idea that you don't really have control. That by leaving the EU, you've got less control over what happens in your country because it's now being run by an elite and they're going to put their ideas down. You don't have control over the interest rates. You don't have control over the petrol prices. You don't have control over the national curriculum. You don't have control over how much money goes into the NHS. And you can think that you might, but for the next 5 years at least, you're not going to. The Tories have taken control from Europe. We haven't taken control from the Tories. So globally, and this is something that amazed me, I saw through social media that not everyone, I guess, not everyone, but there was an American perspective. I saw an American perspective on social media that basically, this obviously doesn't represent everyone in America, I understand that, but it basically said that this result in Europe was a victory against globalisation and that it should be seen in a positive light by people like myself who are anti-capitalist, anti-consumerist, who believe in the breaking down of global corporations, and that I believe that global corporations having huge power is bad, but that's how it might be seen and spun from an outsider perspective. But in the UK, in England, that is not how this election has been fought. People don't understand the term globalism. They're not interested in globalism. They are fighting this election on immigration. The idea that you're poor and that you're struggling and that there's not enough money to pay for things like the health service, schools, housing. The idea that our society is being run down by an overflow of immigrants who are taking. That's the idea that has been pushed around in this election to win those votes to leave, to take back our borders. It's very similar to Donald Trump, very similar. And it's a fallacy because, as I've explained, the immigrants aren't the ones causing the problems in the country. We do have controls over our borders. People coming in isn't necessarily a bad thing. We're not talking about immigration massively in this video, but I just wanted to point out that that's what it's been fought on. The idea is that immigration is what we should be focused on. That's why they've won those votes. And the working class people have, I've seen interviews on the internet of people who are both working class and seemingly ignorant, okay? So I'm not being rude about the working class, I'm working class. Some people are ignorant, some people are not. Some people are working class, some people are not. But the votes that the Tory mandate, the right wing, the elites, the votes they needed to win were in the working class areas. And the way they won them was by promoting the idea that immigrants are bad and we can control them, okay? So it's not a vote about globalisation. It's not about that at all. And the truth is that the people who have pushed that message to the working class, the poor people, the normal people, the people who should fight globalisation, are the corporate elites. The people who have won in this election in the UK, the people who are happy about this, are the big global companies, are the big corporations, are the political elites. So it's not a victory for globalism. It wasn't fought on that playing field, and the people that have won are the ones who favour globalism. So I don't see how American view eyes on this, and it's not every American, like I said, it's like certain people, I guess, that I've seen on Facebook who said, wow, it's interesting how this has happened in Europe. Maybe the world of globalisation, capitalism is going to break apart, and it's a victory and it can move forward. I'm all for that sort of thing. I'm anti-global, I'm anti-capitalist, I believe though that I'm one human being amongst a load of human beings, and that we are a global community, and I don't think that we should be individual little islands and little countries, because that's how big companies can control us, dividing and ruling. Okay, so I believe in global harmony, I believe in global unity, and I believe in the race of humanity all being one and not having borders and divides and all this bullshit that's caused because of it. Okay, so if you're American and you think this is a victory for the anti-globalization ideas, it's not, because the people that have won are the ones who promote globalization ideas. Okay, the bottom line, if you voted Brexit, you've been confused, you've been conned. It's a con trick. Everyone falls for con tricks because they're designed to make you easily fall for them. I think we've all seen magic shows or clever card tricks and stuff and not known how it's done, and that's how our brain works. We're human. We fall for tricks. We all do. And these con tricks, they're used because they work. So that's why it's happened. Okay? The Tory elite have confused the working class to the point where they're angry, not at the Tory elite, not at the capitalist institutions, not at the banks, not at the government. They're angry at other poor people. And they're so angry about other poor people, they will vote for the same person that will destroy their NHS, remove their benefits, remove their housing. The Tory capitalist, right-wing, conservative government do not want to provide social housing. They don't want to provide an NHS. They think those that pay can have and those that don't can't. That's the whole point. That's where the spectrum is. Socialism, elitism, right wing, left wing. That's the divide. And what they've managed to do in this Brexit is to take some of those right wing ideas and to feed them to these people at this end. And that's not what's supposed to happen. We're not supposed to, as the working classes, fight each other and break apart. We're supposed to, as the working classes, join together to wrestle back control from the people who are holding us down. I want my country back. I want my country back from the bankers, from the Boris Johnsons, from the Nigel Farages. I want my country back from the intolerant. I want my country back from the haters, from the bigots, from the closet racists and the people that think they don't like their near neighbours because they're from another foreign country. I want my country back from the people that didn't like it when black people came here. I want my country back from people that didn't like it when Asian people came here. And I want my country back from the people who don't like it that Europeans are coming here. I want my country back from anyone who doesn't want to share the country with anyone else. Because if you don't want to share it, you can't have it either. That's how it should be. It shouldn't be that I should be so tolerant that I let people walk all over me. And this is the whole point. That's the kind of idea they've been fed, isn't it? You shouldn't let these immigrants walk all over you. No. I want my country back from the people who are really treading on me. I want my country back from the people who are really benefiting. Do you see any of these immigrants in £1 million houses? Do you see any of these poor refugees with riding stables? Do you see any of these poor people getting huge bonuses from their banks and how obvious does it need to be? How obvious does it need to be? Put down the Daily Mail. Stop listening to those idiots with their hate speech. Have a think. And this is a real key point. This is a real key point. Have you ever met anyone foreign? Have they ever done something bad to you? Aren't they just people? Aren't you foreign to somebody else? Can't we all just get along? Well, no, you know what? Some of us can't get along because some of us are not there yet, if that makes sense. Some people haven't realised the truth. Some people are still talking some quite silly nonsense, like Nigel Farage, like the people who decided we should leave Europe. And there's more of them now. The majority of people have got bad ideas. And that's not a surprise when the minority that own all the means of production, that own all the media, they're feeding them the bad ideas. Education works, but we've got to harness it in the right way. You can't keep educating the people with bad messages and expect them to suddenly understand the world properly. You can't. I'm sorry for sounding arrogant. I don't really care. These are the facts. This is the truth. I want my country back. Peace. Tolerance. And this ain't over. What will happen in the near future is, in the next sort of five to 6 years, is we'll have to see the results of this happen, and we'll have to see poor people having a harder time, the NHS fall apart. You know, we'll have to see the results of this in order to realise what really happened. And we can go back, you know, we can go back to you. Things will evolve and change in the future. This will be a blip in British history, because ignorance does not win out amongst an island of sentient, intelligent, forward-thinking people. Ignorance doesn't win out. It might be in the majority at the moment, but it does not win out. I'll tell you why. Because if you're ignorant, you're only ignorant until you see the light. And when you see the light, and when you realise, when you meet foreign people, understand they're decent people and trying as hard as you to make everything better for everyone, when you end up being helped up off the road by the Good Samaritan, you know, when you learn these lessons, you don't go back, you go forwards. So all we need to do is keep teaching people the truth, keep enlightening them and keep showing them the truth. And so what if you're angry when you watch this and you think, oh, fuck him, he doesn't agree with me and I'm not projecting the message in the right way? So what? You know, I've said it this way, someone else will say it a different way. You will learn, it will happen. And eventually that will overbalance and outweigh the people who choose to not learn or have learned but use it for their own benefit, like Nigel Farage. Because I don't even think, you know what, I don't even think people like Nigel Farage and I don't think Donald Trump hates Mexicans. I don't think Nigel Farage is anti-immigration. I think they realise that by saying this, they win the support of the working classes, and that is the only way to win the support of the working classes, when you represent something that holds them down. And I think they've realised it's a good con trick and that it works in their favour. People might dislike them, they might be making the country worse, but they make a lot of money and they end up with some power. And that power they want, that political power, helps them because they're in business. So now they can make businesses succeed where poor people suffer. You know, let's pay people less minimum wages. Let's make sure they have to work more. Let's make sure that it's not the companies who suffer if they fire somebody unnecessarily. You know, why shouldn't I sack someone for being a woman? That sort of thing. They can get away with that the more and more we give them the power to do that. And that's what they want, isn't it? So it seems obvious to me. I don't know how it's ended up like this. It's a massive mess. I can see how it happened through the manipulation of people's minds, through their ideas, spurious ideas that have been perpetuated through the media. This is media. We have an opportunity now as people to break that down. We don't have to listen to ignorance. We don't have to listen to idiots. And if you're just... I saw a video, this is why I'm making this video, because someone who I thought was quite liberal and enlightened actually voted for Brexit, and they posted these videos on their Facebook wall from this northern woman having this rant about stuff. She's still bitter, and her side have won the election, and she's still bitter. Like, it's bizarre. So she even said it, she talked about the media in her video. She doesn't understand, this is all media. I'm media. Yeah, you're media. What we have to do is we have to break the control of the ignorance through social media. That's how we have to do it. It is working. It is definitely working, and I can prove it's working because things like Britain First, they might rise and they might seem to have some support, but then they're shown to be ludicrous. We can pull them apart, we can highlight the fallacies. In my video, I have just made a logical, reasonable argument as to why the people from the social elites want to fuck over the people at the bottom of the pile and how they're doing it. You know, and if you don't think I'm right, comment, make a video, do whatever. We'll discuss it, and we'll discuss it enough in public until people realise the truth. Because Hitler got really far, didn't he? He got really far, he got loads of people behind him, but not everyone thought the same. And eventually, when it comes to matters of right and wrong, standing up for people who can't stand up for themselves, fighting for the underdog, fighting for the working classes, fighting for the real people, fighting hard against intolerance so that we've got more to share, when it comes to that, we win out every time. Freedom wins every time. It's part of the human nature. It's part of the human condition. It's part of our soul to want to fight for good. And I won't stop, and other people won't stop. And you can bring your bigotry, and you can bring your fascism, and you can win your little votes, but in the long run, we're going to fuck all over you because you got no heart. You're cowards. You're scared of immigrants. You're scared of somebody else taking yours because you don't think you can do enough to make it happen yourself. You're pointing the finger at other people and you're saying, oh, it's because of them that our country's fucked, at the same time as taking smack, going down the bookies, fucking drinking beers, beating your wife. You're the fucking ignorance that we're going to stamp all over. Don't get me started. Don't get me started. Vidal Sassoon came to this country as a poor immigrant. He had a Jewish family, he had to live in an orphanage. He became the best hairdresser in the country. But you know what he also did? Set up charities, fought for human rights. Yeah? Vidal Sassoon was a poor immigrant who made his life and our culture better. You can't shut your door to people like that because you think Johnny or Susie, somebody else, isn't going to work hard. We've got people in our country who don't work hard. We've got people in our country who go down the fucking doll office. We've got people in our country who want to drop out of school at 14 so they can like do drugs or whatever. You know, we've got enough people in our country who don't really understand how to better society through sharing. Like, we don't need to import more of them. Yeah, true. But you can't hold back good people in favour of trying to stop some bad people. You know, you can't do that. Otherwise, you're going to have to start deporting people from our country for being cunts, aren't you? You know, we've got enough criminals in our country anyway, but there's enough good that comes with it. Cream rises to the top, but shit floats. I'm getting confused now. These last few don't mean anything, do they? Just you mark my words, just trust me on this. We want our country back, and we want our country back from you, Boris Johnson. We want our country back. We want our country back in the EU. You fucking idiots.
Let's make love happen. Chemical reaction, chemical reaction.
Let's make love happen.
Good cop, bad cop.
Chemical.
Reaction. Let's
Make love
happen.
chemical
Reaction. Chemical reaction. Let's
make love chemical
chemical, 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 chemical reaction, 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 chemical reaction,
chemical
reaction. Let's
make love
happen. Chemical, chemical, chemical reaction, chemical reaction, chemical reaction, chemical reaction, chemical reaction, chemical reaction. Let's
make love
love.
chemical
Reaction,
chemical
reaction, chemical reaction, chemical reaction, chemical reaction, reaction.
love love
Chemical reaction, chemical reaction. Chemical reaction, chemical reaction. Chemical reaction, chemical reaction. Chemical reaction, chemical reaction. Chemical reaction, chemical reaction.
love love
Chemical reaction, chemical reaction. Let's make love happen. Chemical, chemical, chemical reaction, chemical reaction, 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 reaction.
make love happen
Good cop, bad cop.
chemical 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 chemical
Chemical reaction, chemical reaction.